welcome to another painting video. In this video, I'll be painting the Darkoath Fellriders, another unit from the awesome Darkoath army set. In this video, I'll mainly focus on the horses. The Darkoath on the horses I painted the exact same way as I did the Marauders. So please check that video on how I painted the different kinds of leather and metal. Let's begin, shall we? After priming the model black, I spray on Nightlord's blue on the model. This will create a cold blue underlayer for all my paints. Next, I spray a zenithal of white ink on the model. This will help me out with my contrast paints and will make sure that I'm able to see all the different details. And oh boy, what an amount of details are on these models. I start with the gray-brown horse. I paint the horse with Ratling Grime. This is quite a particular color, but I like it a lot. Next, I add a layer with a thicker brush. This is a mix of Stormvermin Fur and Dawnstone. I focus on the raised areas. This will become the base of the fur. With my highlight brush, I use a mix of Dawnstone and Kislev Flesh to paint on a highlight and fur. You can go as detailed as you want here. I come back with the same mix as previous, but I add more Kislev Flesh to the mix to make the final highlights. I really like Ratling Grime as it has hints of grey and brown and works really well with beasts, it seems. I really sketched on the highlights to simulate some fur. Let's continue with the brown horse. For a brown horse, I want a nice dark base coat. I use Cygor Brown contrast paint. Then I come in with Dryad Bark. This to add the first layer and to remove some of the splotchiness of the contrast paint. I add a highlight of Gorthor Brown and start the base of the fur pattern on the larger parts of the animal. And I enhance the highlights and fur with Baneblade Brown. This is a more typical color for a horse, and it looks really good next to our previous one. But we're not done. Next, I'm painting a black horse. I start again with a contrast paint. This time, Black Templar. I really like the color of this one, but wow, it's so streaky. No worries though, we'll fix that in the next step. With Dark Reaper, I add the first layer and fix the streakiness of the contrast paint. I apply it in a sketchy motion. The first highlight is Thunderhawk Blue. Highlight the muscles of the horse and /or add a pattern of furs on the flanks. With a mix of Thunderhawk Blue and Fenrisian Grey, I add the final highlight. You could also paint the black horse with grey highlights, but I think the blue highlights look a lot better and richer. I'll actually be using grey highlights later on for the hair. Alright, let's go to the last horse variation. Again, I start with a contrast paint. This time it's Basilicanum Grey. I add the first layer using Dawnstone. This contrast paint isn't as streaky as the others, so I immediately try to sketch the fur. The next highlight is a lighter grey. Here I'm using Ash Grey from the Army Painter. And I end with a highlight of Company Grey, also from the Army Painter. Now you can use any light gray paint you have, but I was very curious about the Army Painter Fanatics range, so that's why I used them. And only my chieftain gets a gray horse. This will help him stand out a little bit more from the rest of the cavalry. I'm giving all the horses, except the grey one, black hair. I base coat with Black Legion. I highlight with Deep Grey from the Army Painter. And highlight again with Uniform Grey, also from the Army Painter. The grey horse gets white hair. I first base coat with Celestra Grey. And shade with Soulblight Grey, which is a very subtle shade. Then I highlight the hair with Ulthen Grey. To add some red on the models, I paint the covers of the horses with Khorne Red. I shade with Nuln Oil. And then I come back with Khorne Red to paint the raised areas. I highlight with Wazdaka Red. And highlight again with Kislev Flesh. In order to bind the models with the rest of my army, I need to have some red in there. Well, this is a great way to paint some reddish looking leather. Now from this point on, I followed my previous video on how to paint the Marauders and all the leather and metal, so please check out that video for more information. I really wanted this particular character to have red hair, so let's add some more variety to the army. I base coat the hair with Doombull Brown. And layer on Squig Orange. Then highlight with Troll Slayer Orange. And a final highlight of Fire Dragon Bright to get a faded red hair look. Finally, I dot the eyes of the horses with white paint. And paint them with Blood Angel Red to make them look a little demonic. And here we have some cool Darkoath Fellriders. I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot of work to get these models painted up. Especially with the way I painted my Marauders, so there's a lot of different colors and textures that need applying. But I will say I'm glad that I did the extra effort because they look very cool. I will probably need 5 more in the future because they seem very squishy in game, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. In my next video, I will paint up the last unit of the army set box, which is the Wilder Fiend. In the meantime, be sure to check out my Instagram, where I'll post pictures of current projects and behind the scenes stuff. But for now, thanks for watching.